UFC 5 is finally here. It was finally announced. It'll get a full reveal in September, and I'm definitely looking forward to it because we've been on UFC 4 for a minute. In the comments below, let me know what you're looking forward to when it comes to UFC 5 and if you're excited. While I have you here, let me talk about the top 5 ways that UFC 5 can instantly be better than UFC 4 to me. Number 1, bring back ground and pound. Now we all know that ground and pound took a step back from UFC 3 to UFC 4, but I've been playing UFC Undisputed 3 lately, and it still surprises me how a game that came out in 2012 has more ground strikes, positions, and animations than a game like EA UFC 4 that came out in 2020. And to be honest, in terms of grappling and ground and pound, Undisputed 3 excels in that aspect way more than any of the EA UFC games. So hopefully in UFC 5, we get a better ground game, more ground and pound, at least bring the elbows back. And honestly, that's the most perfect way to transition into my next point. So number 2, and I'm not even sure how to explain this, but we need more UFC and less cringe. On UFC 4, it seems like they wanted to take a step back from what makes combat sports. I'm talking about the gore, the brutality, all that. I mean, you look at the Undisputed covers, and then look at the covers of EA UFC 1, 2, and 3, and then look at UFC 4. It doesn't even look like a UFC game unless you know Izzy and Jorge Masvidal. And then you get into the game and the cosmetics are over the top. You can emote, you can spam thank yous after the game. It just seems way too friendly. And that's just from the menus. Even when you get in game, it feels like the brutality isn't there. You're not busting people up the way you really should. People aren't getting cut open or bleeding the way they should. It just seems like the brutality of MMA and combat sports took a step backwards in UFC 4. And I realized this once again playing Undisputed 3. In Undisputed 3, you see all these bruises, you see nasty cuts across the nose and stuff like that. So I say we elevate on that, to be honest. Let's get away from the friendly presentation and let's get back to the brutality of combat sports, because combat sports is brutal. It really is. For the third thing that would make UFC 5 instantly better than UFC 4, it's a real ranked mode. I think my one issue with ranked on UFC 4 is that they had certain windows for certain classes. So I'm a content creator, right? I want to do fighter showcases. Some days I will say, you know what? I have enough time to jump on the game. Let me do a fighter showcase with Izzy. I'll jump on ranked, and what do you know? I can only use flyweights or bantamweights or something crazy like that. To me, it restricted my freedom in ranked. And also, I can only jump on the game at certain times during the day. You know, I have work, I have things I need to do. And so that was really restricting in that aspect when it came to content creation. Now, I could just go to player match and get an Izzy showcase, which is really what I ended up doing on UFC 4, but the gameplay would be inconsistent. Sometimes you'll fight people that are really good at the game, and then you'll fight people that are really bad at the game. And you're not going to get better doing that. When I play any game, I want to get better at it. You know what I mean? I want to play ranked. I want to play the best of the best, even if I get my ass kicked, because sometimes that's how you learn to play the game. But when you add these windows and restrict certain characters being used, it becomes really difficult, especially when you have to use a division where only 1 or 2 fighters are good in that division. You end up playing the same person for a couple of hours, and it gets pretty annoying. So in UFC 5, if we can just go back to what we had in UFC 3, where we can just pick anybody we wanted, any weight class we wanted, I feel like that would be way better. I feel like we just need that freedom back. So for me, it's more personal because I'm a content creator, right? When a lot of people were asking, yo, why don't you do all of your fighter showcases in ranked? It's because I couldn't. I didn't have the time to line up my schedule with UFC 4's schedule to use a certain fighter. I've been playing combat sports games since UFC 2009, and honestly, UFC 4 was the first one I didn't play a lot of ranked matches in. And it hurts, I'm not gonna lie, it hurts. But hopefully in UFC 5, it changes. At number 4, we have better knockouts, a better variety of knockouts. I know a lot of people still miss the rad dolls from UFC 2, and I low-key agree with you, simply because you could get some crazy things to happen. Now, to most people, it's not realistic, but I think it's important for EA to find the balance between fun and sim. That's tough for any sports game. You see it on the 2K side too. It's tough to balance that. But on UFC 2, you had these crazy knockouts. UFC 3 and 4, they made them more realistic. And I don't have a problem with that, especially the way they were on UFC 3. But on UFC 4, you would see the same thing over and over again. You would rock somebody, knock them down, they'll fall into cage sitting most of the time, and then you finish the fight that way. Or you would knock them down, you jump into their full guard, and get the TKO that way. That's how I won about 90% of my fights. And the other 10% is because I was either fishing for submissions or I was fishing for submissions and people quit. You know, so hopefully we get a more variety of knockouts on UFC 5. People just don't fall into full guard. People don't just fall up against the cage every single time, you know? And while I'm on this subject, and this goes back to bringing the brutality back, we need to be able to finish the fight. Once again, I'm playing UFC 3 over again. Check out that career series. And I was surprised when I realized, oh yeah, you can finish the fight on here. That game came out in 2012. It was in previous EA games. Let's bring it back to UFC 5. For the fifth thing that would make UFC 5 instantly better than UFC 4, and this is more personal, just because I'm a visual guy, right? I like to see certain differences. I want to see fighters get updated more frequently. And I'm not talking about fighter stats or their traits or perks, assuming that comes back, but I'm talking about the actual look of fighters. On UFC 4, Charles Oliveira did not get his blonde hair until not too long ago, actually, and he's been rocking the blonde hair forever. And it's the same with his updated tattoos, and that's the same for a bunch of fighters. They changed their hairstyles, they changed their tattoos, and I would like to see that reflected in the game more quickly. Now, of course, I'm not sure how much resources EA has to dedicate to this. It might be a waste, but I'm just saying it would be nice. You have your light heavyweight John Jones body style, and then you have your heavyweight John Jones body style. I think having certain things like that would be a breath of fresh air for the game, but that's just my opinion. We could go on for days and days about the different hairstyles and the different character models. Actually, leave a few in the comments below, but you all get my point, right? Fighters change over time, and I would like to see it reflected in UFC 5. So those are my top 5 ways that UFC 5 can instantly be better than UFC 4. Once again, I was playing UFC Undisputed 3 and I was like, yo, we can still learn from this game. It's actually crazy. So leave your thoughts in the comments below. Once again, UFC 5 will be revealed in September of 2023. This year, I'm looking forward to it. You all be easy. Peace.